What's up, everybody? Welcome. RotoGrinders MLB Crunch Time, just after 12:30 p.m. Eastern here. I'm hosting. Justin Carlucci here, alongside of Christy Metzger, also known as Creighton on the DFS streets. Long time, Christy. How the heck are you?
I know it is so good to see you. It feels like it's been a little while, probably since basketball. And yeah, so it's great to see you.
You too. Congratulations on your live final seats for Fanduel. Christy will be headed to Chicago in a couple of months, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think it's in August. Yeah. Thank you on that. Yeah. Looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah. What was the winning stack you played in that one? What got you there?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story because the very first seat I won was with the Baltimore stack and ended up with the Baltimore stack on this one too, back on Mother's Day. So yeah, kind of crazy. I don't play Baltimore a lot either. So kind of lower owned stack for sure.
Cool. And Baltimore doesn't win much, but they won that day for you.
They did. Yes, they did.
Yeah, we don't have them on the slate. They played tonight, but it's unofficially International Adley Rutschman Day, who is getting a call up from AAA. So, probably one of the top two highest, highly touted prospects in minor league baseball is making his way up, and he's a catcher if you're not familiar with him. So always good to find those catchers with upside. I don't know what he's priced at, but you don't have many of them that are underpriced that have like decent home run upside.
Exactly. So. I see FanDuel just added him to the pool too. I think he's 2,400. So
cool.
He's in the pool.
Cool. Good to know. And if I do remember correctly, we do have a crunch time tonight as well. I think STL Cards is on that one. So we'll have you guys covered for the main slate as well. Over on Scores and Odds, our partner site, we got you covered. Tons of great betting picks and tips over there. And we have free content. A bunch of our guys write articles over there pretty much every day. Keith Eister, Tim writes articles, Tasteful Tides. Nick Galeta does a lot of good stuff too. Ian, one of our NFL guys. So Scores and Odds, we got you covered. Check it all out over there. A lot of good info on props, up to the date odds and line movements as well. And a good FanDuel Sportsbook promo we have here. If you're in a legal sports betting state, new users can sign up and get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. So I gotta love those risk-free bets if you haven't signed up, especially at FanDuel Sportsbook. And those are the best times to take advantage of some good bets that you like. So without further ado, Christy, and big shout out to Steve, who's producing this thing, by the way. I'm wearing a Yankees shirt, and he's a Mets fan, and the Mets are in Coors, so maybe we'll bring him in at the end of the show, but he didn't really have a take for me on the Mets at Coors in the cold weather, Christy. So we have, some weather things to talk about, and I don't think either of us can pretend to be Kevin Roth. But it is going to be cold in Coors. The Chicago-Arizona game was a scorcher yesterday, and Roth's Weather Edge model hit the home run with that one. And boy, was that a slugfest, and he was all over that one. But that's not going to be the case today, from what it looks like in Chicago as well. It looks like it'll be more pitching weather, I guess. But the kicker there is there's two not so good pitchers taking the bump today in Chicago. So interesting stuff here. I guess let's just talk about pitching first. I have DraftKings pulled up. Are you looking at FanDuel, Christy? I know you typically play FanDuel.
Yeah, I've got DraftKings up too, because I know it's just a little bit bigger slate over there. But yeah, I've got them both actually.
All right, yeah. I have DK up, and Rodon is carrying almost 60% ownership, rightfully so, and projected ownership anyway. And the Giants are going to take on the Padres. Alek Manoah looks like he's carrying about 50% projected ownership. Those are the two super chalky pitchers. So I guess in this upper tier of pitchers, you got Cortez, he's still carrying ownership in his own right. Joe Musgrove looks to be like the odd man out in terms of who the public wants to play. Rodon and Manoah are kind of at the top. What's your take on the top tier arms today?
Yeah, for me, it's really hard to get away from Rodon today. I mean, he's got, the biggest strikeout upside, 36% K rate. I mean, just a really great pitcher in a good pitcher's park. 15% swinging strikeout rate. So, there's just a ton to like about him today. So certainly he's kind of my top guy. I do like Manoah too. He does get a great matchup. I know he hasn't pitched quite as well the last couple of outings, but he gets the Reds today, and nothing to fear there. So I think he has one of the better matchup plays on the slate. So Rodon and Manoah are certainly the best plays in my opinion. Cortez, certainly like him too. He has a 33% K rate this year. It is a little bit warmer in New York today, but another good matchup there. He's certainly priced up. And so I think those guys at the top for me are my favorites. If looking to save a little bit of money, on the GPP side, I certainly don't mind Hunter Green. I think he's kind of a sneaky play. He's certainly volatile. I mean, he's got a 29% K rate, could put up some points, but he could also go negative too. So, I mean, there's a lot of different outcomes for him, but I think that's what makes him a great tournament play. And then I'd maybe just throw Justin Steele in there too. That total has gone down quite a bit. Weather's good for pitching. Talked about that a little bit. So, if you're looking to save a little bit, certainly don't mind him as well.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. The more I'm tinkering with my single entry build, I think the more prone I am to try to pay up for some bats and maybe pay down at pitching. I'm still tinkering as we speak, but Justin Steele caught my attention too. Great matchup, great pitching weather. Not going to sit here and pretend he's like a world beater or anything like that, but the matchup's fine. But the weather, I think, is even better. So, at that price, you're not looking for a ceiling game. You just kind of want him to cruise through 6-7 innings, right? And that could be good enough. Now, if Rodon or Manoah goes out there and drops 35, and you don't have either of them, your bats better do some hitting. But I think Steele is a fine SP2. Bumgarner, it seems like he's carrying 20%, and so some of the public's on the same thoughts in that game that we're on. They're just on the other side here, of course. He's much cheaper than Justin Steele, but I totally understand the Bumgarner play too. He scares me a little more than Justin Steele.
Same.
Okay, good to know. But Hunter Green, I think, he had one really bad game, right? And outside of that, he's been okay. Now at Toronto, I don't know. Does he scare you more than Bumgarner, or like is the ceiling higher with Green? So he's kind of siding with him in that range.
Yeah, for me, I'm siding with Green just because of the upside there. I know it's Toronto. I mean, they've really struggled lately, especially against right-handed pitching. But Bumgarner certainly does scare me just a little bit. I mean, when he has a tendency to not play well, he could certainly give up some home runs and go negative pretty quickly. So I don't have any exposure today. I get why he's in the mix. I mean, on DK at just 5,900, he certainly doesn't have to do a ton to get you there. But yeah, I'm like you, Green has really just had that one bad matchup, and otherwise, we've seen some good upside there too.
Yeah, and before we get into the bats here, for DK, definitely check out Roth's weather report. Couple of yellow-orange games for the early slate. That Arizona-Chicago game he does have labeled as yellow-orange. He said it's going to be pretty ugly. He thinks it's playable. There should be a healthy, dry window early this afternoon. He expects them to play in suboptimal conditions, though a late start might be necessary. Good weather for pitchers, he says. So I love that insight. It sounds like you don't have to hit the panic button if you see a push notification that says the game has been delayed. Let's get that out of the way before it starts, because if it happens in the second inning, you're probably screwed if you're taking pitchers from that game. But Roth makes it seem like it's okay to target the pitcher. It sounds like that game's okay. So I'll take Roth's word for it here. We'll just run down the weather quick before we get into bats. The Mets at Colorado. For this slate, he said he doesn't expect falling precipitation, but it's 40 degrees. So You're not going to have that, July Coors Field air. However, the Mets, they're still not great pitching with Marquez there, and the Mets have a decent Vegas team total just north of 5. So we'll get into the bats and talk about Coors Field as well. So not your typical Coors Field game, but still is interesting to me as a tournament player. Seattle at Boston, hot, winds blowing out. So that's interesting as well. Chris Flexen's pitching in that game, and whenever I pick on him, it doesn't usually work out for me. I missed that that implosion he had last week. I've been chasing like bats against Chris Flexen since I've existed, I feel like. And then, he's not very good. He pitches to contact, but he seems to always escape. So maybe it's a Boston, red hot Trevor Story day against Chris Flexen. I don't know. But let's start with the catchers on DraftKings. You need a catcher on DraftKings. And as you know, on Fanduel, it's not exactly the case where you have your choice. But on DK here, you have a couple of catchers who are projected to carry some serious ownership here in this early slate. Elias Diaz, almost 30%. On that Coors card against Carrasco, hitting 9th. That's a tough pill for me to swallow at that ownership and hitting 9th in the batting order. Then you have Yan Gomes. I'm just going in terms of ownership here, just north of 20% against Bumgarner. And then, of course, Kevin Plawecki. Man, it's a rough slate when Kevin Plawecki's carrying 20%. Talk to me about this brutal list of catchers here.
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see Elias Diaz, carrying the most ownership today. Like you said, he's batting 9 in Coors. So for me, I'm probably looking to save some money today. And I do like Yan Gomes at just 2,800 on DraftKings. He has a great batting order position. I think he's fine in both cash and tournaments. And to me, I'm looking more to save money than spend money. I mean, if you are looking to spend up, obviously, Wilson Contreras at 5,500 against Bumgarner. I mean, great matchup, of course, but very, very expensive. Another guy that I would maybe throw in there, we'll get to the Yankees in a little bit. They've been fantastic, but Higashioka, I think he is a fine play too at just $3,400. And then I'd maybe throw Grandal in there. I know he's going up against Cortez and all, but certainly a good play too. And he's just at 4K. But for me, most of my lineups, I found a lot of Yan Gomes in them.
Yeah, I think he makes a lot of sense. And this could be a slate where you just want your catcher in your stat kind of thing. I find it hard to believe Diaz will come in at like 27 to 30%. I could be wrong. I won't be surprised if he's over 20. Seems like we're coming in a little hot there, but either way, I'm not thrilled about him in that game in the batting order at that ownership. So I like your call. Maybe going with the Yankee. Kevin Plawecki doesn't really have a ton of upside. My dog just stepped on a squeaky toy. Sorry about that. Anyway, good stuff there. Dalton Varsho, 5,100, and I can't get there, especially in that game with the weather. So a lot of weird matchups here at catcher. So I think I'm with you. Maybe I'm paying up for Contreras. Although the weather is pitcher friendly in Chicago, it is Madison Bumgarner, a little righty lefty there. So I totally get that as well. Moving on to first base here, gets a little more fun. So a lot of options here today. Vlad is carrying a ton of ownership against Hunter Green. CJ Cron also above 5K. Over 20%. Anthony Rizzo against Dallas Keuchel, who pitched well against the Yankees last week. Then you have Ty France. A lot of options here. I'm staring at Dominic Smith, and we have a couple of expert blips here. It seems like Keith and Cards both are on Dominic Smith in the cold weather, but he's only 2,700, and it is Marquez on the bump for Colorado, and he's sub 5%. So let's get into that conversation. Talk to me about first base here. Smith seems like an out-of-this-world value. What are your thoughts on the weather at Coors Field, Christy? Is that deterring you at all?
It is a little bit. You think about it, the pitching actually is pretty good. You've got Colorado going up against Carrasco. And then you've got, the Mets going up against Marquez, who are pretty good pitchers. So to me, I think there's an edge to fading that game because I think there's a couple other good matchups that we'll get to that'll come up a little bit lower owned that I like. So, I kind of like fading the Coors game a little bit. Especially on this early slate. But I do think Dominic Smith is obviously a great price. It's a great value in that Coors game. A couple of guys that, I'm also looking at, I know we said it's more of a pitcher friendly game, but, Frank Schwindel in that Cubs game at 2,800, I think that's a value that stood out to me. And I could, see stacking a few of those Cubs too. We talked about Yan Gomes, and I think getting a few of those guys in there is not a bad play. Rizzo, lefty against Keuchel, but, still have a ton of interest in the Yankees. So he's someone that I'm considering. And then, I do like some of those Diamondbacks too. Again, weather is questionable, but they just had a heck of a day yesterday. Christian Walker, great matchup against Steele. I like his price point at 4,200. So those are a few of the guys that I'm kind of looking at first base. And of course, if you're paying up, I certainly love Vlad. I think, Toronto's a great stack and will probably carry some good ownership there today. And then Pete Alonso, of course, both he and CJ Cron in that Coors games are good pay up options. But I think on the lower end, I like Dominic Smith, but would also throw in there Schwindel and then Rizzo and Walker in there in my player pool as well.
Yeah, I'm staring at Pete Alonso, and like the large field dart throw state of mind is like, when are you going to get him at 5%? The bat likes him,
Yeah, that does.
And the bat takes everything into consideration here. Derek Carty's great product, by the way.
Yeah.
Top of the line stuff here. Pete Alonso is, hits fastballs well, but Marquez is so elite at keeping the ball on the ground. Like, he's not great at much, but
Yep.
he has like a 50% ground ball rate, and it's going to be really cold there. So part of me, the tournament player mindset to me is like looking at all these low ownerships with a decent Vegas total. But are they going to get there? Is it going to be a ball and play game and maybe they hit 5 runs, maybe no one hits a homer? How do they get into that 5 runs? I don't know. If it was someone else other than Marquez, I'd be a little bit happier about targeting some of these Mets. It is a short slate, and I know I talked about Pete Alonso. If you really need value, I don't mind going to Dominic Smith here, as do some of our experts. I don't know, but I might talk myself into just fading Coors. Marquez keeping the ball on the ground in 40 degrees. It just sounds like a probability, an outcome that could be likely. Yeah, good stuff at first base. You mentioned pretty much everyone I wanted to run through. We'll go on to second base. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Discord or from YouTube, where Steve's pulling them from me. Second base, DJ LeMahieu, big ownership number we haven't projected at there too. I think he might be coming in the second highest owned Yankee. You obviously like the matchup on paper there against Keuchel. You got to start worrying about ownership though. Tommy La Stella leading off against Musgrove. Not a ton at this position here. A lot of opportunities to be different. A lot of guys we have projected at single digit ownership. Gleber is also eligible here at second base. LeMahieu is the one who's multi second and third here. You can get Gleber at half the ownership as LeMahieu. So that's where my brain's going here. What are your thoughts about second base?
Yeah, that's my thoughts too. I mean, obviously LeMahieu is a great play, but I like Torres too, just simply because he's going to carry less ownership, and he's been playing much better the last week or so. Jeff McNeil back in that Coors game, some of those Mets guys are priced pretty cheap or inexpensive at 4,200. So certainly have interest there. Tommy La Stella, 2,800. I mean, those Giants, even though it's against Musgrove, bat and leadoff, La Stella, certainly a good player. So I do like that, especially if you're looking to save. Jonathan VR, I like him probably more on Fanduel. He's either 22 or 2,300 over on Fanduel. So I like his price point better over there. But again, if you're looking for some of those Cubs stacks, they certainly make some sense. And then also in that Cubs game too, that Christopher Morel against Bumgarner, he's just 2,200, batting 7. Again, if you're looking to save money and kind of stack Coors, some of those Cubs pieces do kind of get you there. So yeah, for me, those are kind of the guys that I'm looking at the most too. And I do like the Yankees quite a bit today. So finding a lot of the Torres or the LeMahieu in my lineups today.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't mind playing Marte at like no ownership against Justin Steele. I know, again, we talked about pitcher friendly weather there, but
I just was looking at that too. Yeah, that's a good call.
He has some pretty high upside. And Trevor Story, he went from doing absolutely nothing this year, and he's finally getting into a rhythm, and you're gonna have to pay up for him. We have him projected at like no ownership. I don't know if that'll be the case here. But that he's super intriguing to me as well. Third base, of course, you have LeMahieu, who's eligible at both positions, which is really nice. Rafael Devers against Flexen, a couple of Coors Field guys here, and Josh Donaldson against Keuchel. So I think Donaldson's my favorite play here. I'm okay with that ownership number on this kind of small slate here. I'm surprised, Devers coming in that low. So those are my top 2 tournament targets. But if I'm playing cash games, I'm playing LeMahieu somewhere if I'm playing cash games on this slate.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Donaldson is such a great play. Devers is priced up, but I think Boston is an extremely sneaky stack today and gets you away from some of those Coors plays. So certainly think that he's right in the mix. Eduardo Escobar is coming in, he's just 3,100. So again, in that Mets game, there's quite a few cheap pieces there, but yeah. And then I also kind of threw Ryan McMahon in there just as, he doesn't seem to carry as much ownership. But I also think that he's certainly a fine play in that Coors game. But for me, a lot of Donaldson, and then have interest in those Boston stacks with Devers too.
Yeah, I agree. I think Boston is sneaky. I know I was kind of like poo-pooing on chasing the Chris Flexen implosion game, but like he doesn't strike anybody out. The ball is going to be hit somewhere. Yes. So I think on this slate, Boston's a good look too. And we'll talk about stacks then. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them. We got a couple rolling in, and we'll get to them after we cover the rest of the positions here. Shortstop, again, a chance to be different here. There's not a ton of upside on this slate, but you have Bo Bichette, you have Bogarts, Lindor's on the slate at a cold Coors Park against Marquez and Tim Anderson. Although Anderson, has Nestor on the bump on the other side, who's having a surprisingly phenomenal season. I don't mind Tim Anderson for tournaments at like no ownership at all. He's probably going to get 5 at bats. So I think Anderson is one of my favorite tournament targets here. Seems like the public's picking on our guy Hunter Green a little bit here, going to Vlad and Bichette and everybody. So what are your thoughts on Bichette and the Blue Jays a little bit here?
I'm torn. I do like the Blue Jays, but they're maybe not my favorite play today. I maybe do have a little bit more interest in Green, but I get it. I mean, when the Blue Jays are on, their lineup, the prices have come down, especially on Fanduel. I mean, you get a chance to get Vlad and some of those guys under 4K on both he and Bichette and Teoscar Hernandez, and Springer is the most expensive, I believe. So I do think Toronto is a good stack. So interest there. I do like Xander Bogaerts, especially on DraftKings. I just find them as a really, really great tournament play today with Bogaerts and Devers, Story, and getting a lot of those guys into my lineups. I like your Tim Anderson call. Like you said, Cortez has been great. No one's going to play a guy like him, but I mean, he has huge upside. So I thought that was a great call. If you're looking to save money, I think you could throw Vargas in there. Nothing great about it, but I mean, he's almost min price if you're looking to save money, but I kind of looking more to spend money at the shortstop position today.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Bumgarner does have a day-to-day tag, but he is in the starting lineup. He was taken out of Friday's game. I think he had like back problems or something, but it looks like he's okay. So that's good. Kind of leaning towards Boston as like a secondary stack right now for me. I think, I'm not going to totally chase the flexing thing, but I'm with you. Shortstop, not a ton there. So, if you're not playing Bichette, maybe, even Bogarts at projected 15%, but I'm fine with that. So let's talk about the outfield a little bit here on DK. About 12:55, 10 minutes until lock. We'll get to a couple questions here. And if we have time, maybe we'll just kind of talk about the FanDuel pitching, since oftentimes that's like the biggest discrepancy between sites for the most part. I mean, a lot of names in the outfield here. Springer against Green and Charlie Blackmon at Coors, both over 5K. And of course, Tommy Pham against Alek Manoah. No one's going to be on Tommy Pham here. It's hard to not like the Yankees. I know they're chalky, but decent weather in the Bronx. I know Keuchel pitched well against him last week, but history doesn't repeat itself. Otherwise, there'd be no point in playing the game that we do here. So for me, like Stanton and Judge, I'm going to try to get different elsewhere here. I think they're elite options today. What are your thoughts about the Yankees outfielders here towards the top?
I couldn't agree more. In fact, I tagged both Judge and Stanton today, and they're two core pieces in my lineup. I mean, I just can't imagine leaving either one of them off my lineups. I mean, they both have been hitting home runs. They both have been hitting the ball very, very well. So they'd be scary fades. So those are my two favorites. I agree. Chris Bryant, he's just simply mispriced coming back into that Coors game at 3,900. Makes a ton of sense. And then, the Blue Jays guys like Springer is priced up at 5,200. Teoscar's priced up a little bit, but obviously, certainly interest in the Blue Jays. I'll go back to Boston. You've got JD Martinez sitting there at just 4,600. So he's priced less than Teoscar Hernandez. So that stood out. I, really like him a ton today too. Let's see here.
I like Kiki Hernandez in that game too.
Yes.
Cheap.
He is cheap. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. He is really cheap.
Vertigo's cheap. Like the Boston bats, like they're affordable.
Cheap. Yeah, they are. Yeah, 3,300 for Verdugo. That's like, yeah, boy, sign me up. And again, just because the Coors game is on there, I think, Boston will get a little overlooked. So they're one of my favorite GPP stacks for sure.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of days ago, the Blue Jays, the encore of the Flexen implosion, the Blue Jays were like straight chalk going up against Flexen. I don't think they fared extremely well, but why not? It's just Coors is a difference maker. I mean, the pricing on Bryant is off, but man, we got it projected at almost 40%. It's just such a huge number.
Oh, it is. And he's just coming back too. So yeah. I mean,
what do you do? Like, do you not one-off guys that are that high in ownership? Like if you're playing a 40% guy on the slate, like, do you want him in a stack if you're playing him, or what do you do with a Chris Bryant today?
Well, that's tricky. I'm more apt to probably, and I'm more on Boston today. So I'm actually fine fading him. He's just coming back. And because he is going to be so popular, I certainly don't mind leaving him off today. Like you said, you've got Kiki Hernandez at 3,600 there. I'd rather make sure to getting, him in there. It's going to be a hot day there today. Nice wind blowing out a little bit to the left. Such a great home run park too. So yeah, I'd rather, I feel a little bit better leaving him off today. And again, especially because of the weather being what it is in Coors today.
Cool. Got a couple minutes left. Let's transition over to talk about a little bit of Fanduel pitching. While we do that, a couple of questions that are rolling in here. I'm flipping screens here. What are your thoughts on Garrett Whitlock today? Do you have any interest, Christy?
On Fanduel or just in general?
I think it might be DK or in general, I suppose, either side. I mean, Fanduel for raw points, I'm probably out.
Yeah, DK, exactly. We didn't mention him. No, I actually think he should be in the pitching pool on DK, just at 7,600. I think he provides some good upside. I like that matchup anyways. I like the Boston bat. So yeah, I think he's a good play.
Okay. And who's your favorite SP2? I guess it's probably a value question for DK. We talked about 3 or 4 guys. Who are you on today for a cheaper option?
Yeah, for me, the more I kind of looked at it, I probably would say throw Justin Steele in there. I think he's kind of ended up in most of my lineups, I would say, for value today. Or green.
And if you're double punting, like you could play both pitchers in that Chicago game, like your bats are probably going to have to go ballistic, and you can't get a ceiling game from, Rodon or these top guys.
Exactly.
But you can do that. Any thoughts on, we talked about Boston, on Cordero for saving some money here?
Yep. No, I think he's fine too. Yeah. I mean, he's certainly got some pop and saves you a little bit of money. So yeah, I'd throw him in the mix as well.
Okay. 1:00, got about 5 minutes here. Fanduel has a really small 3-game very early on. I hate how they just split this.
I know it.
Billion things. But it's all good. Love you, Fanduel. It's all good. I don't know that I'm staring at accurate ownership projections for the very early only slate. Probably not. But you have Manoah, Cortez all the way up top, and then there's a huge gap. We talked about, the potential upside of Hunter Green, and maybe Justin Steele, you need a quality start and a win out of him to probably get there. But on FanDuel, like, I just feel like the gap from either Manoah or Cortez will likely be big enough that you might need one of them if you're playing optimally. I mean, what are your thoughts on this little pitching pool here?
Yeah, exactly. For me, I'm looking to use really on FanDuel either Manoah or Cortez. I just think that kind of makes the most sense. I think Manoah has really the best matchup today against Cincinnati. So for me, kind of just doing one lineup over on FanDuel today, and that's who I'm using.
Okay. Is there any like difference in stacks here? I mean, 3 games slate, the Yankees ownership's going to be through the roof probably. So who's your second favorite choice, I guess, out of these 3 games to stack?
Yeah, I think for me, and again, if you're spending up for pitching, and I like the Yankees, they're definitely my primary stack. To get different and to save some money in there, I'm looking at that Cubs D-backs game. So I think you could either go the Arizona side or the Cubs. There's a lot of cheap Cubs play on FanDuel today. I mean, Yan Gomes, super cheap, Schwindel. And then on the Arizona side, with Christian Walker, Jordan Luplow, Ketel Marte is priced really, really well. So maybe looking more to fade some of the Toronto side of it on FanDuel, just because, they're going to be popular over there as well. So trying to get a little bit different going on both sides of the Cubs game.
Yeah, I like it. Just a note about, I don't know, half an hour ago, Yoan Moncada was scratched. So
yeah.
Definitely, adjust accordingly if you didn't see that. He might still be listed as like starting in the DraftKings, the little green check mark next to the name. Not sure. But everything I'm seeing is he's out for today in that Yankees White Sox game.
Same.
So
Yep.
Get him out of those stacks. A guy who's just been terrible this year is Aaron Hicks, and God, it just landed on him to like round out. I don't feel good about it. In the 9, I don't even know. I don't think I'm gonna end there. But we have 2 minutes before lock here. I don't know. You got any like home run calls or anything off the radar? Like, you have a favorite contrarian stack we haven't talked about? Anything like off the wall you're looking at?
Yeah, let's see. I'm just trying to think that it's such small few games, I guess, on the slate today. Another thing I'd point out on FanDuel, Teoscar Hernandez just at 2,800 makes just a really great value over there too, as opposed to like DK. I do like your Ketel Marte call. I think he's good play today, and he's kind of my home run call for today.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, we got like 1 minute to lock, guys. So whatever you're wrapping up, make sure you are hitting that save button for sure. Yeah, Christy, anything else we didn't cover you want to?
I'm trying to think. Your favorite stack 2 Yankees, would you say? Or
Yeah, I know it's not a fun answer, but
yeah, it's hard not to like them right now, just the way they're hitting. And I mean, all the metrics just line up so well for the whole team.
Yeah, they really do. I guess Boston, Boston probably is my second favorite stack if I had to pick one.
Sure.
So
yep.
I'm with you there for sure. As bad as the Cubs weather is, I do have exposure to pitching there, but both pitchers are not good. So weather isn't everything. Don't kill me, Roth, but it definitely counts for something. So I totally understand, but that game, I wouldn't be shocked if there was a couple bats in there. You mentioned some of the Cubs like Schwindel and those guys, they make a lot of sense too.
We do.
Yeah. So it looks like we just hit lock here, and I don't see any other questions rolling in. Oh, Steve, sorry, I didn't even see your message. Who's throwing the 6 scoreless today, Keuchel or Flexen? With the way baseball's been going, it might be one of them, that's for sure. But my vote would be Flexen, since I never get that guy right. So
yeah, I would say the same.
Math is saying there'll be runs in both games, and we'll see what happens here. But I guess that's it. Christy, anything else? Where are we heading now?
Oh, not that I can think of. Yeah, no, it's should be a nice little slate. And then, like you said, back tonight. Some of the guys, you're back tonight too for.
I think STL's on tonight.
Okay.
Yep, I think he's hosting. I'm not sure who he's with, but he'll be back for another slate. 2 slates on a Saturday. You gotta love it.
Gotta love it.
Before we get out of here, Steve, what's your Mets call today? What kind of game are they going to have in the Cold Coors Field? Let me have it. If he's with us. Yeah, I caught him. I think so.
I think so too.
I think so. And wow.
I like it.
Yeah. So hopefully some of that Chris Bryant chalk fails if that's your
That's right. It goes to
prediction.
the Boston side.
'Cause I don't have them. Yeah. So cool. Good stuff, Steve and Christy. Appreciate you guys. And thank you all for tuning in on YouTube and hanging out in our Discord with us as well. Again, crunch time for the night slate or main slate, whatever you want to call it, will be back later tonight. So for Christy and for Steve, I'm Justin. Have a good Saturday and good luck, everybody.